Hello, and welcome to Season 2 of Local Listens, available on Spotify, Pocket Casts, Anchor, and our YouTube channel. This episode is going to be a little bit longer than some of our previous episodes. We wanted to start the season off right and bring on a big supporter of the local punk and metal scenes out here in Washington. She has insight on things happening at new venues, life in the scene, art projects, and her own music documentary in the works. As always, if other bands are mentioned throughout the episode, you can find links to them in the episode description. We also have some links for more information on some things talked about throughout the episode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Local Listens. I am Bailey of Bailey Ukulele.
And I am Shane of Sanatorium Hill, and on this episode we have...
I'm Death Metal Mama.
Death Metal Mama, the original, the only... Death Metal Mama.
The one and only.
So you are an artist that puts out some awesome artwork. You're a big supporter of the local punk and metal scene. You got some work you're doing with Kvlt Mead and helping with Punks in the Woods, and you're working on a film as well. Am I missing anything here?
I recently picked up upholstery and leather crafting. I try to stick to more traditional mediums, like hand sewing. I don't like to pick up as much technology as possible, keep it rooted on the earth. But yeah, I've been moving away from doing more visual arts and more towards crafts. I started with quilting and stuff. So I've been trying to pull in more like found art, and it's more abstract and more decorative rather than imagery related.
Okay. So you're not going to be making a gigantic Gorgoroth blanket or something like that?
Well, I probably would. Actually, that sounds awesome. But what I like to do, I like to work with other artists, commission for some sort of art to put on t-shirts, and then I'd be able to sell that from my website, deathmetalmama.com. I haven't really done a whole lot with that yet, but the past year and a half or so, I've really just been meeting everyone in the music community out here. I didn't meet anyone until October 2019, actually, the Bomb Shelter show.
Ah, yes. I was there. I did
when
the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I was there as well. That is when I met you. Wow.
Yeah, and that's when we just went in the backyard and played for people that were
That's right.
around the fire.
And that was, I walked outside in between sets, and Mystery Monkeys was randomly playing
House Cat. That was
House
the first
Cat.
time we'd ever done House Cat. Oh, no.
Right. But it was the first time I'd ever recorded. I walked out and I had my phone. I was like, oh my gosh. At that point, I had started recording bands, and that's what I had wanted to do when I was a kid, going to shows. So first punk show I've been to as an adult, I was like, I got my camera now. I have a camera. It's going to be in everyone's face all the time.
I feel like that's
one of the things that I've been trying to set up at Kvlt Mead too, because it's such a new space. They just moved into this giant, I don't remember, 5,000 or some ridiculous number square footage warehouse with these huge ceilings and giant floor space with no beams in the middle. Avoid the beams when you're moshing in a lot of the lower, smaller venues and stuff. This place, it's dark though. It's got so much potential for streaming, but Will is talking with this guy who does more other visual aspects for stage, and they're going to bring in new lighting and stuff like that. So that will probably help out the problems that we've been having. The other people that I talked to about gathering video footage and stuff, we're going to try and work with the meadery to make it as streamable, stream friendly and videotapable as possible. That's an old word, videotape. We don't videotape anymore. But they have this huge loft space up above the sound area where we want to be able to hook up cameras and stuff and get overhead views of the mosh pit and the stage area and all that. But it's hard to get the cameras to focus at that distance with the fluctuating colored lights on the stage.
Oh, yeah. And Will has the lights up on the balcony there as well that he's using. So, yeah, focusing would kind of suck.
we all tend to use varying gear too. So John Malley has good, like decent hardware that he's using to record stuff. And he was at the show. We had Rat King, Ryan, and an Orator. And John was gonna get up on the loft space and see about using different lenses. He does a lot of photography, but he's been trying to get more into video recording stuff. So I think he shot an entire song in 4K of Rhine when people got into the mosh pit for the first time. It's been a
Okay.
while.
Yeah,
We got to have our first mosh pit.
that is awesome.
Cool.
I did see some pictures posted of that. It's the post COVID mosh pit.
It took a while too. And Rat King played first, and I love them so much. But people, it was like, you could tell people were still kind of warming up to the idea, like, can we move around? But also, people were still just starting to get into their cups, so didn't want to splash all over the place. But then in the second set, it's like everyone was already sloshing, so might as well mosh too.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
there's always that thing like, okay, I don't want to spill my drink, but also I already had somebody else's drink spilled on me, so what's the
But I
point?
also don't want to be the person to spill someone else's drink.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I'm
I
going to
stayed
smell like
mostly out of the
beer.
way of that. But yeah. Oh yeah, they actually did end up tapping I think 2 beer kegs. Brian is the meadery brewer, and they do only mead in that establishment. However, they buy kegs from other breweries locally. So and just support locals.
There you go.
Yeah, if anybody listening is in the like Olympia, Tacoma, or Seattle area and has not checked out Kvlt Mead, that it's run by wonderful people. Yeah, wonderful people helping volunteer and work through everything. They got great metal shows that are scheduled and coming up. Like, I'm not somebody who drinks, but every time I go there, I always get another like bottle and bring it home because Shannon always enjoys it, and I have never heard anything bad about any of their mead.
Yeah, they're pretty fantastic. They have this recurring drink. It's a session mead. A session is a lower alcohol content. So it's more like a table sipping beer sort of thing. You don't get ruined on it. I think they keep it around 5% or so. I'm not sure. I'm bad with numbers, but they call it immortal, and they just bring it back with a different base honey each time. So mead is honey. It's just fermented, like with yeast and stuff. And so they started out with fireweed honey from the mountains. You can only really get it up in the mountains because it's like after a fire, the flowers that bloom are the fireweed, the first ones. So the honeybees up in the mountains are the only ones that can actually get fireweed honey, because otherwise it would be like intermixed with a whole bunch of other flowers and stuff. The one they have currently is orange blossom honey, which tastes nothing like no, it's court. No, they have done orange blossom, but this one was a carrot blossom. That's it, orange carrots.
Okay.
Yeah, carrot blossom is a weird one. It's very earthy, and you get to familiarize with different honey flavors in this area too. Like CJ, my husband, is a mead brewer, and we've been doing that since our early 20s. So getting around here, it's been interesting meeting up with other people who do home brewing, but then they're all actually starting their own breweries for professional purposes now.
Yeah, it's really cool because when I first met Will, we were working together, and then he was like, "Hey, I'm in a band. Can you help with audio?" And Will is the bassist of Siren's Reign, who we had on in the first season of this, so we'll link that episode. And then when Kvlt got started, he was asking me to help set up the audio and stuff there, which that has already started to grow. It started with just like a couple subs and some like kind of worn down main speakers. And we're like, all right, we can get this to work. And now, like a couple weeks ago, we went in there and just redid the entire thing again with all new house gear. And those speakers are small, but wow, they got some power. Like
Oh my gosh.
5,000 watts or something like that.
That reminds me, the show last night, Will didn't even see this happen because he was paying attention to the board. But one of those speakers, the ones that stacked on top of the bottom level, it ended up walking itself off and tipped itself over under the weight of the bass last night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So some people in the crowd just had to go and pick up this whole speaker and set it back up.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty
That's
sweet.
how it should be.
So the first location Kvlt Mead was at was basically a hole in the wall closet, maybe 500 square feet or something. You could fit like 15 people in there. So the only shows they could have were modular electronic, like experimental sounds and stuff. So there's this thing in Tacoma called the Tacoma Noise Rodeo. I don't know if anyone that has listened to this podcast has ever heard of the Tacoma Noise Rodeo, but it's super weird. And they bring in 3 people with their modular gear, and they each take turns making weird sounds. And then at the very end of it, all of them join up and they all play together.
Oh, word.
Okay.
So a thing in December of 2019. So they got as many people in there as they could possibly get. And the light bulbs were vibrating out of the sockets in the ceiling. It
Oh,
was,
jeez.
Whoa.
yeah, it was intense.
Oh, that's so cool. I kind of wish I saw that.
They started having them at the new location too, and the ceilings are a lot larger, and there's less chance of light bulb hazards. But they hooked up a projector screen. Well, not a screen, but they've been like projecting video onto the back cement wall behind the stage. The person that programmed that made it so it's like in tune with the timing on the mods. So you can actually experience the music vibrationally if you're not a hearing person, or visually now. I
Wow.
love that.
Wow.
That's really cool.
I really want to see that.
I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I know. We all need, for those of you listening, you need to get your asses down there, it sounds like.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
you can
check this
follow
shit out.
Tacoma Noise Rodeo. Tacoma Noise Rodeo. I'm gonna say it.
all
They're on
right.
Facebook, and you can follow. They have like ridiculous posters and stuff. Oh, so Chris had some T-shirt designs made. He had me vectorize them to get them screen printed. I haven't seen them, like the T-shirts yet, but he was paying neighborhood children to draw pictures.
Oh, yeah.
So they have like little sketchy doodles of a cowboy.
That is
Just
great.
adorable.
There
Love it.
was one noise artist that I've been trying to get back in contact with since we moved out here. But they used to come through the Wisco, which is the bar I worked at in Madison, and they would do like these noise sets that were also like interpretive, kind of like it was a whole show where like they would get everything going, and then they'd bring in like a ceiling fan and they'd just box it and like get into a fight with the ceiling fan, and like the pieces of that they would like rub on the microphone to make even weirder noises, and then they would
Very
like
good.
throw shit at people in the crowd, and it was just like the weirdest thing. But I saw them for the first time, and they only had cassette tapes, and I went out and I bought a tape player just to listen to them.
Yeah,
I was just like,
actually
all right,
had to
cool.
go and buy a tape player because it seems like that's coming around. I mean, it's easy to access
Oh
for
yeah.
recording
Right.
purposes, but for sharing, people send me their music a lot. I had to go and find a tape player at Value
Yeah.
Village recently. Yeah.
Yeah, amazingly, like, tape players are both, like, easy to find, but also slightly difficult to find.
Yes, the
'Cause
problem we had, so CJ found it, but he popped it open and there had been batteries left in it, and so he's gonna see if he can fix it.
You know.
Yeah, for Sanatorium Hill, we have a tape player that we use to play samples. And the whole thought of that was while we were busking, we could still play samples and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I bought like 3 before I got one that worked. And then I got the tape that's in it. I'm pretty sure it's a Doobie Brothers tape that I just like keep recording over.
My mom would say that's blasphemy.
Yeah.
My mom is definitely where I got my affinity for. I would call myself a music nerd, but I'm not like a trivia person. My mom is a trivia-minded music nerd. All the
Okay.
history, all the different bands and musicians and all that. And she's really the one who got me into alternative music with grunge when I was in third, fourth grade or so.
Yeah.
All
And that was
right.
like right before Kurt Cobain killed himself,
Oh.
like months before. So I was like just starting to get really into it, and it was like, wow, wow, wow.
Oh. Yeah, bad time to get into it.
But at the same time, Yakima, where I grew up, it's a very isolated location. We had 4 TV channels and like we had one rock radio station. And then I found out that there were a lot of local bands and they were playing like way better music. And so my mom would take me to the Folk Life Festival in downtown Yakima. They have a park and they would set up a stage. And we had like Stonefly, I believe, was the one I remember the most. But they would do compilation CDs. And then when I actually got to be a teenager, I got invited to go to an all ages club in Yakima called The Zone. And I didn't even know that was a thing. Um,
Hmm.
there were some of my classmates were in a band. They're like, you should totally come. I was like, me? Really? Okay.
Right.
People are inviting me to something. Are they going to hurt me?
Oh.
No. Honestly, though, like growing up out in Wiley City, Yakima County, that was a decent question to ask.
Oh, wow.
That's right.
But that's why I feel so connected to the music community, because that's how I found out that people were like me. I mean, we would all listen to different music and stuff, and I would get exposed to all sorts of different genres and, kind of find my way around. So I call myself death metal mama, but I listened to bluegrass. Like my dad was a bluegrass player, and my grandpa was a fiddler in the rodeo, and
Wow.
I listened to all sorts of stuff. I grew up with Patsy Cline and, but there were punks and metalheads out there and they didn't really get what I was doing. And people thought I was a goth. I was like, you seem to be really uncomfortable with that. So I'm going to go with that. Yeah, I'll be goth. And until I find something harder.
All right.
But this band, they invited me out to my first show. It was called Insecure. How fitting. And I still talk to some of those folks, and one of them ended up working in music production for like commercials and video and stuff like that. So he's like still working on it professionally, and we communicate the most. But the first time that I went to a show in Yakima again after we moved away was at Off the Record, which was actually for Record Store Day. And that was the last one that record store even had. There is no more Off the Record in Yakima. They closed.
Oh, wow.
But my
Yeah.
friends were playing. My friend Eric Smestad is a very old friend of mine. We grew up going together at the Zone and like going to parties and house shows and stuff. And he's still in basically every band in Yakima. How that goes. So few musicians around. Everyone's like, yeah.
That's hilarious.
All right.
Yeah, I met up with all the punks there and was walking around the record store, and in the wrong genre even, I ended up finding Insecure's CD. Someone had brought into the record store, so I picked that up.
That's awesome. Again, back when I was in Madison, there was a record store called Earwax, and
Nice.
I don't know if they're still. Wait, no, they actually closed a couple years ago. But I remember walking in there for the first time, and I was like, okay, I found a place I'm going to be a lot. And
I love record stores, man.
yeah, there's some feeling like you can go to a record store and be like, all right, yeah, this is a record store. But like the moment you go into like a certain record store, you're like, okay, I will definitely
This is
be
home
back.
now.
Yeah, like I will befriend everybody who works here. Also, they probably
CJ
know all the
So
shows.
CJ, my husband's from Littleton, Colorado, like outside Denver. But I think out there, the record store that he took me to was Black and Reds, and I went in with him. We were on a road trip after he got in the military. I took a Greyhound from Washington to meet him up in Texas, and then we just drove basically to Alaska and got married. So in
Oh,
between there,
wow.
we went to a lot of random places, met a lot of random people. But this record store, I believe, is where we picked up an X-Cops, the blue small record, like the 7-inch. And X-Cops was Brocky before Guar. But
Oh.
I just recently got into a Guar like fan trading group on Facebook. And someone auctioned one of those off. I was like, I might just hoard this a little bit longer.
I have seen a couple of your posts in the last like couple weeks about guar, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm gonna have that addiction again.
Yeah. I actually ended up leaving that group not too long after that, unfortunately, because there's like I love Guar, but so they released this vinyl figure, like a collectible thing. I'm not into figurines and stuff, but people in the group were talking about it because it's new Guar merch, obviously. So
Yeah.
someone had to make a post of a woman, like they made a woman's body the subject of the whole conversation, and basically we're just body shaming her and talking about her as though she was a blow up doll and oh, when do we get this
Uh,
figures? Or I was like, I'm just gonna bounce that.
yeah.
That's one of those weird things to go through in the music community as a woman. I do go by she, her. I have considered like I am more of a masculine presenting sort of woman, but I'm definitely a woman. I've thought about it, but it's it makes it hard because I used to be objectified more, and in retaliation, basically, I feel like I have to be more like, don't mess with me, So I have to be more off-putting so people take me more seriously, but only in certain communities. And so when I find I'm just not working in a certain crew, it's like you don't respect me clearly. Like even though you have been respecting me, like you don't get it. Um, that's a hard thing to go through for women, especially because like our only real model for women in rock music was like the 80s, the women on the car, and
Yeah.
that's fine. Like, go ahead and be hot, and, and we need that. We need like hot women in the music industry, but they also need to be respected too. So
Oh, yeah.
finding some sort of model for that behavior is someone has to be the first person in a lot of instances. And so we had like Joan Jett was the real hard ass that I would pay attention to. My mom got me with Pat Benatar and stuff like that growing up. But then I also had Cyndi Lauper. Like girls just want to have fun. So
Yeah.
dress weird, do whatever you want. And then got like Pat Benatar and Joan Jett going like, you can still stomp them.
Yeah.
I get the whole sexualization thing, and sometimes it's necessary, but I feel like it has to be done artistically. Like going back to my history with art and illustration, and like I did actually go to art school and all that. I think of the human body slightly different than, I guess, pop culture generally intends for you to. And what I'm liking right now is people standing up more often, more frequently, and more loudly going, stop that.
Yeah. And within the music industry, one of the things that really just has annoyed me since I was a kid was anybody, like, especially like when I started getting into like punk music and everything, it was just like, oh yeah, this is a punk band, and then this is a female or a woman fronted band.
Yeah.
And I'm like, isn't that it's the same fucking thing? Like, why is that another genre that like I didn't know about? Like, what the fuck's going on? And
Yeah.
within the last couple years, I've really noticed people just being like, why have we been saying this?
Like I did grow up with Riot Girl. That whole thing was going on in Washington in particular. So there was that model, but there's also like I would get stuck with people around town calling me like the angry feminist sort, you know? And it's like, do you really have a problem with people who are angry and sticking up for themselves, or are you just angry that they're telling you to stop it?
Yeah. So
The riot girl thing, I do have mixed feelings about because it does. There is a lot of toxic femininity. I will be very upfront about that. I will be very brutally honest. I have met some women who just take it too far in the wrong direction that, toxic masculinity tends to go. And it's all retaliatory,
Right.
both directions, I think. As far as going to shows, around Tacoma has been awesome. I didn't have too many problems going to shows at the All Ages Club when I was a kid, like a teenager. There were some guys in my friend group who would go too far or decide they were just going to claim me, like super weird sort of. I think it has to do with the community in general, like the localized population culture
huh.
mostly. But over here in Tacoma, it seems like all the artists have moved from other areas, and the people that I've met and connected with the most, they're just over all of that. And everyone is a lot more on board with just, let's just check that behavior immediately, check it at the door.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I love the scene out here, especially like being one of those people that came from a different area. Like it's super accepting, super inviting, but also like very protective of itself.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
if somebody gets outed for being like toxic in any way or like abusive in any way, it's just like, okay, the whole scene knows about it and we're gonna do something about it.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we all feel sympathy, empathy for one another too when people do act out. Like, I actually just had a friend tell me to take it down a notch because I was getting after someone in a certain way that became slightly too personal. And I do have a tendency to just, I will go for the jugular and I will hold on if someone messes with a situation that is very important to me, particularly related to body image issues. That's a huge deal for me. I will trigger so hard.
All
And
right.
that's one reason I'm not going to be working too closely. Like, I don't want to open a shop and just like be able to have people come in and out like a brick and mortar. I was thinking about it, but I need more distance from people because I am really hot-headed. And I feel like that happens a lot in the music community. People get into rock music because we need an outlet, right? So being able to monitor one another sympathetically, like, I get what you're going through right now, but you need to take a step back.
Yeah.
And people will let you back in. It's not like entirely exclusionary. Unless someone makes it very well known, they will not be working on themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like even in an area where everything is so kind of open and I guess the music scene out here is a lot more like progressive, but still like there's so many I don't know, just like cis white guys.
Yeah, that is a
Yeah, so it gets so annoying and then like having people come in that are just like no, like we're gonna make sure everything is actually like make this seem like the best that it can be and also like yeah, we get it, you're here, cool, but also you're not the only ones here.
right.
So
That's one of those things about Yakima actually that I could bring up as far as musicians. There were a lot of metal bands, not a lot, but like metal was more prevalent, I think, than the punk bands. And there were a lot of the guys that were playing metal out there that were dealing with home issues, you know. I mentioned Yakima has a very toxic culture. Well, everyone's trying to escape from that on some level. And growing up, these guys would like, I tend to get along with guys better than girls in certain situations because I am more aggressive because of my father. So these guys with fellow, like also with father issues, we would tend to get along, but then also butt heads because I'm definitely a girl and I'm going to be checking their behavior. And sometimes they just won't take that because of father related, like retaliatory stuff. But there are some of these guys, they're still playing music, but they've moved to different areas. One also was in the Air Force, like my husband. He's down in Texas, I think. He's still playing with a band down there. They're doing pretty good. He was a lot more conservative for a while until he moved to Texas and realized no. He's still more conservative leaning, but he's far more progressive. And we reconnected after I let him have it over some LGBT stuff once. And then he tried to recontact me after a while. And it's like, okay, I'm going to have some proof that you've been working on this, like we all have to work through some stuff. And he's been doing good. His old bandmate, though, he was going through it too, and I never actually met this guy. We went to shows together, but I just never was introduced, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
We started talking more on Facebook because mutual friends and music and like the same bands and stuff. But he'll like tell me about stuff, and I tend to help people through psychological stuff. Just like I've seen patterns and behaviors before, and I'll be like, oh, here's where this was going or coming from. And so people like talk to me about dark stuff. And this guy just couldn't get through it. But we'd still be talking about music, and he'd still be sending me songs and stuff. But then we just can't talk. It's like, just leave it with the music, But then I do have to shut some people off every once in a while and distance.
That's how it goes,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Especially
I think
after
that
this.
last night. Yes.
Way,
Super weird though. Last night I just started talking to this one guy. I'd like seen him around Kvlt Mead before, but never had a conversation. So we're hanging out behind the meadery last night in between sets, and came up. I'm from Yakima, and he's like, "Oh, do you know this guy?" And I was like, "Actually, yeah." But haven't been able to talk to him for a while because like I love the guy, but we got a distance because there's still things that aren't processing. Like he's trying to be more progressive towards things, but there would be a setback and he would just like blow up and just can't handle it. The new information, I guess.
All right.
that makes sense.
But he's been doing better too. And this other guy at the metal show last night, he's trying to get him to come out here. I guess the guy moved to Spokane, but like a 5-6 hour drive or something. But he's still playing metal, and he totally should come out here sometime.
Yeah.
Being out here is just it's something else,
Yes. And we are very protective. It's like, if you're gonna be out here with the music community, you're gonna have to play it nice on some level.
Yeah, like we like loud and aggressive, but also like check yourself.
Yeah, like don't make it uncomfortable for everyone else around you. Don't ruin the vibe.
Yeah.
There's a time and place for loud and aggressive, and it's on stage.
Yeah.
Mhm. Or in the mosh pit, just pick each other up too.
And
Yep.
Nicole, you have some ideas to kind of get people to find out about more like local bands and stuff, because you've mentioned like this kind of death metal vending machine. Is that
Yeah.
still a thing that you're working on, or is that
that's sitting in my garage.
all
The
right?
thing is, though, it's like hard to figure out. I am not a capitalist. It's rough. How do I not lose money?
Yeah.
But yeah, I got this vending machine for free off Becka Brisbane. Becka makes buttons.
Yeah.
But they went and got this vending machine from a firehouse in this tiny little town I probably can't even pronounce the name of, south of Tacoma. Anyway, they're moving and had to get rid of this thing, and I think it has 12 slots on it. The thing is, I don't know how to bring in band stuff. So one thing I would like to do is make like sticker packs or get patches or something easy. You could just like, oh, here's a $5 sticker pack, and then inside will be Bandcamp forwarding information, like maybe a QR code would be easiest.
Huh.
But I also would like to be able to pay bands to do that. I don't know. There's a like logistic wise, I'm not a business minded individual. I come up with ideas. The money thing, I don't know how to do, and I would prefer I didn't have to at all.
Yeah.
Exactly what I do is I'll be like, yeah, I have this like 10 of these great ideas. And then like I don't know how to do these ideas. So then I'm like, well, you've done something like this before. How about like that's how this podcast got started, really. I was like, I'm always had this idea to do a podcast. And then I was like, I know nothing about podcasting. I know nothing about editing. And I was like, Shane, I have a proposal for you. I have this idea.
Yeah, that's how I do a lot of stuff. I wrote people into things and
Well, when I first met you, Nicole, like, of course, it was at the bomb shelter. I was just like, all right, awesome person, super supportive, like, just jumps into this show and just, like, super fucking happy about it. And, like, even, I remember, like, an hour or two before the show, like, I got notified that somebody, like, bought our album on Bandcamp, and I was like, huh. Somebody named Nicole. All right. And then like later that night I met you and I was just like, "Oh shit. Okay."
yeah, I'm gonna be all over your stuff with my camera. Hey, what's up?
Yeah. And it was just like cool.
Just had to familiarize first.
So it was like super cool. And then now from that like initial meeting you have just like, "Oh, okay, yeah, meeting like this awesome person that loves music." And then within the next like year of it just being like they're everywhere.
Yeah, I think it was you and maybe Eugene. Oh, I was over at the gravel pit, and I think it was you. It was like, who the hell are you even? Like, where'd you come from? Like, I honestly don't even know. I actually did not exist as Death Metal Mama until probably the end of 2019, early 2020. It was just, I was trying to be like kind of hokey with it. And honestly, it started with me just trying to be more comfortable in front of a camera because I do have body dysmorphia like so hard.
All right.
So I got like really uncomfortable trying to do selfies even, or just like even talking to myself on camera. I was like, this is not good. I'm gonna have to work on that. So I got angry at myself for being nervous at myself. And so I would stare at myself as much as possible. And then it's like, well, the only way this is comfortable for me is if I am joking, like laughing or doing something ridiculous or making faces the entire time. So might as well go ahead and be my email address. Death Metal Mama was my email address. And people like cash registers or whatever, you go into a store like, oh, let's sign you up for this Savers card or whatever. What's your email address? Death Metal Mama. Like, what? Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool. And this film you're working on, we got a little bit of time left here. But before we're done here, do you want to talk about the film you're working on at all? And
yeah, so ultimately, all this video footage that I've been recording, I would like to just be able to provide bands with recordings of their sets and stuff. And that ended up, people were sending me thank you messages like all through COVID lockdown, like, thank you for having this available for us. Like, we can actually relive this through lockdown. I hadn't even thought that far ahead. But then at that point, I was like, I was recording stuff all the way, like right before shutdown when everyone was so excited. And I was talking to people all over the state and everyone was like, something big is going to happen. We were so excited. Like the scene is just growing exponentially all of a sudden. And so I have all the recordings leading up for like all the energy. And then all of a sudden we're in a pandemic and I had footage from the Plaid Pig, the last shows, and people were just starting to get nervous and there's like all this tension. And going back and just looking through the video footage that I had caught, I was like, this is historical record, technically. Why don't I just make it all into a documentary at the end of whenever I feel like I have enough stuff? And
That's cool.
I do feel like at this point, this whole story is bookending. The documentary stuff did start with me writing my own journey, like starting to get to know people and familiarize like with humanity after all my medical stuff. And then video just became so much faster than writing. And then I was like, you know what? I'm already on this track of recording stuff for historical preservation because I'm a nerd who does genealogical research and stuff like that. So we're in a digital age and everyone wants a record of their presence here on this earth. So this is some wild stuff going on out here in this music community. And I like rockumentaries. I don't know, people like watching stuff about bands and stuff. And why don't we have our own? And I also found out that Tacoma has its own movie festival, like film festivals and stuff. So might as well.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's awesome.
That's gonna be really cool. I don't know about everyone else, but like for me, I love watching documentaries like that, like ones about music. And so like to have something that local where like you can go and you watch the film and go, I know those people, or I've seen those, like it's that'll be really interesting to like see like the people that you know like in this compilation of this is what our scene is like. This is what it's like here.
Exactly. And because I'm a twisted marketing mind, officially, professionally, I'm also like, hey, if I do this whole film locally and film it all entirely within the region, that actually decreases the amount of money I have to pay to enter film festivals. And then it maximizes potential income, like if I actually make some prizes and if I can have all the locals in it, maybe I can get everyone out to the film festival to vote for me.
See, thinking ahead. And then, so you're working on that, and you got like some other stuff. I know I've reached out to you for stickers and even little things for 3D printing. Which has been amazing.
The stickers are fun. I use a Cricut. It's a little tabletop vinyl cutter, but I got a decent printer that I can do some pretty high quality stuff on for an at-home printer, you know. And spent a lot of time doing research on the vinyl papers for the printing stuff. And yeah, I like all that materials research, I guess. My husband's more of the tech minded, so he will do the most of the tech stuff and building on the 3D printer, and then I'm more of the design mind, and people will come to me like, hey, I've got this project and what could we pull off? And I'm like, oh, here's what I could do for you.
Awesome. And since we are like
running out of time,
running out of time here, Bailey, do you have any questions or comments or anything?
I just wanted to say that, like, looking back on the videos that I have seen, like, and I'm gonna toot my own horn here. Looking at the video you took of me and the one you took of Al and myself performing, and like something about that is just cool because I don't have a lot of video. I have like, okay, here's like 5 seconds of Bailey Ukulele, or here's like this 1 minute clip somebody got of me and Shane performing, you know, All Star. But like, that's like a real like 13-minute video of like me. So I always show people that. I'm like, look what my friend did. Like, look, this is like me perform. Like, because everyone always.
You deserve that rock star treatment. You're gonna get up there and perform for me. I'm gonna thank you for it. You know.
And I'm just like, this is what I look like on stage. In case you were curious. Like, yeah, no. So I really enjoy that, and I thank you for filming all those videos because that is really cool that we can go back and look at those and be like, hey, this, and like it also helps me too because then I'm like, crap, I messed up on that part. Okay, I gotta go back and re-practice that one. Like,
yeah, that's legit too. I've gotten some good feedback and criticism from people who have performed a lot too. Like, I learned about how to avoid recording empty floor space during live streamed performances. Like if the show isn't quite popping, zoom in a bit more. But yeah, people give me some pointers, and I do try to pick up stuff about new equipment, and I feel like you deserve it. Like, it's fun for me, but what's also fun for me is I like to do things for people, like gifts, I guess. I'm kind of a nerd about that. Like, what can I give you?
Well,
and with that,
thank you so much for coming and spending some time with us, and thank you so much for the support from both Shannon and I, support from Sanatorium Hill and just the music scene in general. You have been wonderful to have around. Here is a track from Rat King, a band that played recently at Kvlt Mead, entitled Boratanico. Next week, we have Nessa Marie from up in Alaska on to talk about the festivals and scenes in their area. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Local Listens, and have a great and music-filled week.